Right now, your mind may be replaying a mistake you made months ago, or perhaps it is scanning the dark corners of the room for a problem that hasn't happened yet. Maybe you are lying here, your body heavy and ready to sleep, but your thoughts are wide awake, walking through a gallery of worst-case scenarios, holding your breath as if you are waiting for an invisible floor to collapse beneath you. You are trying to protect yourself by staying alert, by anticipating the worst, and by keeping your mind occupied with the possibility of disaster. It is a heavy, frantic way to exist, this state of constant, quiet hypervigilance, and it is likely leaving you feeling drained, brittle, and deeply restless. You are in a safe place. There is no performance required of you here. You do not need to be strong. You do not need to be prepared. And you certainly do not need to be anything other than exactly who you are in this moment. If it feels right, let your body settle a little deeper into the warmth of your blankets. Feel the weight of your limbs as they finally surrender to the support of the pillow and the mattress. Let the cool air of the room gently brush against your skin, a soft reminder that you are here, anchored in the present, while the rest of the world fades into the distance. Maybe you can hear the faint, distant sounds of the night, the quiet settling of the house, the rhythm of the wind, the steady, reliable beating of your own heart. Each breath is an invitation to let go of just a little bit more of the armor you have been wearing. You do not have to solve your whole life tonight. You do not have to carry the weight of your imaginary storms into your dreams. Maybe you have felt this too. The persistent, nagging feeling that if you stop worrying, you will be caught unprepared. You feel that your anxiety is the only thing standing between you and a catastrophe, so you hold on to it like a shield, never realizing that the shield itself is heavy enough to break your spirit. But tonight, we will sit with a different truth. You are not broken. What you are feeling is not failure. It is simply the result of a mind that has been taught to fear the future more than it has been taught to cherish the present. The very thing you are fighting may be the doorway to peace. We often think that we must maintain a state of constant alertness to keep ourselves safe from life's sudden changes. We walk through the golden light of our own lives carrying a heavy, black, open umbrella, terrified that if we close it, the rain will catch us off guard. But tonight, we will learn that holding the umbrella in the heat is what truly exhausts the heart. The mind does not become peaceful because you finally predict every potential disaster. It becomes peaceful when you stop treating your fear as an accurate map of reality. This is the paradox that we will explore together. The relief you are searching for is not found by worrying harder, it is found by realizing that you have been trying to guard an empty gate, when the only thing you were ever asked to do was tend the garden. Perhaps tonight nothing needs to be guarded. Perhaps tonight it is enough to finally stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right now you are safe enough to soften. You can allow your jaw to unclench, your shoulders to drop away from your ears, and your hands to rest open and unburdened. There is nothing you need to anticipate. There is nothing you need to defend. We are going to move through this journey like a traveler who has been walking under a heavy, suffocating umbrella on a sunny day. We will learn how to set the weight down, how to feel the warmth of the light, and how to understand that if the rain ever does fall, you will be more than capable of handling it then. You do not need to carry the storm in your hands while the sun is still shining. If it feels right, take a slow, gentle breath in, letting it fill your chest with stillness. And as you breathe out, imagine yourself releasing the invisible tension that keeps you braced for impact. You do not have to be the guardian of your entire future tonight. You only have to be here, breathing, resting, and listening. Maybe you have spent years trying to stay one step ahead of ruin, believing that if you stop scanning the horizon for threats, you will lose your way, or that if you stop carrying the weight, everything will fall apart. But look at how weary you are. Look at how much of your life is being spent in a place that hasn't happened yet. What if you gave yourself permission to just arrive here? There is a quiet dignity in admitting that you are tired of waiting for disaster. There is a profound strength in choosing to put down the heavy umbrella, even if it is only for these next few hours. You have done enough for today. You have carried enough for today. And whatever is waiting for you in the morning will be met by a version of you that has finally allowed itself to be restored, nourished, and steady. As we sit together in this quiet, I want you to know that you are not being judged for the thoughts that wander through your mind. You are not being graded on how well you can let go. Even noticing that your mind is scanning for threats is a form of success. Even realizing that you are holding your breath is a victory. We are going to walk through a story, and in that story, we will find a mirror for the things you have been feeling. We will see how an ordinary person once stood exactly where you are, standing at the edge of their own hyper-vigilance, and how they eventually found the peace of an open gate. But for now, just rest. Let the words wash over you like the sound of a soft breeze through the trees. You do not need to analyze these words. You do not need to hold on to them. Just let them be a gentle companion while you settle into the soft, dark comfort of your room. You are safe. You are exactly where you need to be. And you have the permission to let everything go, just for a little while, and simply exist. Is there any part of your body that is still holding on? Just notice it. Send a little bit of kindness to that place. Let it soften. You are doing perfectly fine. You are already exactly who you are meant to be. And the peace you are looking for, the peace that feels so far away, is actually closer than your next breath. It is waiting for you, right beneath the noise, right beneath the constant scanning, right beneath the fear of the next disaster. And as we continue, you will find that it becomes easier and easier to leave the umbrella behind and rest in the warmth of the present moment. In the high, cool silence of a range of mountains far from any road, there existed a monastery where the air always smelled of pine resin and wet stone. It was here that a man named Jiro had lived for several seasons. Jiro was not a monk, but a craftsman, a maker of umbrellas. He was famous throughout the region for his skill. His umbrellas were built to withstand the fiercest mountain storms, crafted with sturdy bamboo ribs and thick, oil-treated canvas that no drop of rain could ever penetrate. But for Jiro, his own creations had become his greatest burden. He was a man who lived in a state of permanent, quiet terror of the weather. He was convinced that the sky was a fickle, vengeful thing, always waiting to catch him unprepared. He lived in a small, drafty hut at the very base of the foothills. He spent his days and nights working on his craft, and he was never ever seen without an open umbrella held high above his head. He carried it everywhere. He carried it when he walked to the market. He carried it when he sat by the fire. He even carried it as he walked through the monastery courtyard on the hottest, clearest summer days. The weight of the heavy, oil-soaked canvas and the sturdy bamboo frame was constantly straining his shoulders. His muscles were always tight, his neck perpetually arched to hold the umbrella in place, and his grip was so constant that his knuckles were permanently white. He missed the beauty of the landscape because his view was always framed by the black, circular rim of his canopy. He missed the warmth of the sun on his face. He missed the feeling of the wind moving freely through his hair. He was so exhausted by the fear of a storm that might never come that he had forgotten what it felt like to be dry and at peace in the sun. Perhaps you know this feeling. The feeling of carrying your own umbrella, that heavy defensive preparation you keep open in your mind, just in case a storm arrives. The late-night lists of potential failures. The constant scanning of your life for the next threat. The refusal to ever let your guard down because you are terrified of being caught off guard. It is a heavy burden to carry, to believe that your anxiety is the only thing keeping you safe. One summer, A severe drought struck the mountains. The streams turned to dust. The pine needles grew brittle and brown. For 3 months, the sky remained a deep, mocking blue, without a single cloud to offer relief. Yet, Jiro still walked through the scorched village with his heavy, black umbrella open. People began to whisper. They wondered if Jiro had lost his mind, but Jiro only tightened his grip on the handle. "You don't understand," he would snap at them. "The sky is a trickster. If I close this umbrella now, I will be caught in the rain without protection. I must be ready. I must stay prepared." One afternoon, a Zen hermit who traveled between the mountain peaks arrived at the monastery. He was a man of very few words. Carrying nothing but a worn wooden bowl and a tattered robe, he found Jiro sitting on a dry, cracked stone bench, panting from the heat, his umbrella held high against the punishing glare of the sun. The hermit stopped. He looked at Jiro. He looked at the perfectly clear, cloudless sky. Then he sat down on the ground nearby and began to eat a simple meal of rice. Jiro glared at the hermit, his face beaded with sweat, his shoulder twitching from the strain of holding the umbrella. "Do you think I am a fool?" Jiro asked, his voice harsh. "I am the only one here who is safe. When the storm breaks, they will all be soaked, and I will be dry." The hermit took a slow, deliberate bite of his rice. He chewed thoroughly, swallowed, and then looked up at the sun. "The sun is very hot today, Jiro," the hermit said. His voice was calm, like a flat stone resting on the bottom of a pond. "Yes," Jiro grunted, shifting his weight. "It is burning, and yet," the hermit continued, "you have chosen to walk through this heat carrying a heavy black canvas over your head." "Why, because of the rain," Jiro shouted. "I told you I am preparing for the rain." The hermit nodded slowly. He picked up his empty wooden bowl and held it out, turning it upside down to show that it was empty. "If the rain comes," the hermit asked, "while your hands are empty, are you incapable of opening your hands?" Jiro blinked. The question was so simple, yet it felt like a stone dropping into a dark well. "What do you mean?" the hermit said, his gaze shifting to Jiro's strained, white-knuckled hand on the umbrella handle. "That you are so terrified of the storm, that you are making yourself incapable of living in the sun. You are shielding yourself from a drought with a device meant for a flood. By clutching this umbrella every moment of every day, you have made your hands unable to do anything else. You cannot hold a cup of tea. You cannot touch the bark of a tree. You cannot wipe the sweat from your brow. You have made yourself a prisoner of your own preparation." The hermit stood up. He walked over to Jiro and gestured to the umbrella. "If the rain falls," the hermit said, his tone softening with an immense, quiet compassion, "the rain will fall, whether you are holding this umbrella or not. If the storm breaks, the sky will not ask if you have been carrying your protection for 3 months. It will simply be there, and if that moment comes, your hands will be free. You can open them, you can reach, you can protect yourself then. But you do not need to carry the storm in your hands while the sun is still shining." Jiro looked at the hermit. He looked at the black canvas that had kept him in shadows for years. For the first time, he realized that his anxiety was not a form of protection, it was a form of theft. It was stealing his sunshine. It was stealing his strength. It was stealing his ability to be a human being, leaving him only as a guardian of a potential disaster. The hermit turned and began to walk away, his robe fluttering softly in the hot, dry breeze. Jiro sat alone on the bench. He looked at his hand, his poor, aching hand, cramped into a permanent claw from holding the handle. He looked at the sky, which was vast, bright, and utterly indifferent to his umbrellas. A quiet, hollow ache opened up in Jiro's chest, a realization of how much of his life he had spent living in the dark, shielding himself from a future that had not arrived. And yet, the hermit's words were so steady, so devoid of judgment, that the ache did not turn into the usual self-hatred. It just felt like the tightness was finally beginning to give way. He took a breath. He felt the heat of the sun on his arm, a warmth he hadn't truly felt in years. He didn't need to conquer the sky. He didn't need to control the clouds. He needed to know that if the rain ever did fall, he had the strength, the presence, and the hands to meet it when the time came. With a slow, shaky movement, Jiro loosened his grip. He felt the bamboo handle slide against his palm. He took another breath, feeling the air move freely through his chest, and then he let go. The umbrella tipped forward, folded, and clattered to the dust. The sound was small, but to Jiro it was like a mountain shifting. He stood up, his shoulders finally dropping, his neck finally unarched. He felt the sun on his face. It was intense, it was real, and it was beautiful. He didn't feel safe in the way he used to. He didn't feel like he had mapped the future, but he felt, for the first time in his life, entirely wonderfully here. You see, dear friend, as you rest in the safety of your own bed, maybe you can see the umbrellas you have been holding. You might even recognize the heaviness in your own hands. You have been trying to protect yourself from storms that exist only in your own imagination. You have been clutching the what-if so tightly that you have made yourself incapable of holding anything else, incapable of holding the present, incapable of holding peace, incapable of simply letting the warmth of your own life touch your skin. But there is a gentle permission in this story. The permission to stop being a guardian of disaster and start being a dweller in the sun. The storm will fall if it chooses to fall, and if it does, you will be there. You will be awake. You will have your hands. You will have your presence. You will have the capacity to meet reality when it happens. But you do not need to carry the storm in your hands while the night is still quiet and the room is still safe. In a moment, we will look at how this habit of catastrophizing actually works, how it creates the very suffering you are trying to avoid, and how you can begin to trust your own inner capacity to meet life, rather than your mind's ability to fear it. But for now, let the image of that umbrella lying on the dust, and Jiro finally standing in the sun, settle into your mind. Let it be a reminder that you were built for this moment, for this peace, and for the beautiful, unfolding reality that is waiting for you when you finally let go of the just in case. You don't need to guard the gate tonight. You don't need to hold up the sky. You only need to be the person who is finally safe, free to rest. When we look at Jiro standing there in the drought, finally letting that heavy black umbrella clatter to the dust, we see more than just a man deciding to stop hiding from the sky. We see the exact moment a lifetime of invisible, suffocating pressure is finally relieved. Jiro had spent years of his life turning his own existence into a calculation. He had treated the weather of his own future like a tactical problem to be solved with canvas and bamboo, never realizing that by trying to prepare for every potential storm, he was only ensuring that he would never feel the warmth of the sun on his face. As you lie here tonight, safe in the dim light of your room, you might recognize Jiro's exhaustion in your own bones. How many times have you treated your life like a puzzle that must be solved before you are allowed to rest? We all carry our own versions of Jiro's umbrella. We carry the lists of potential disasters that run on a loop. In the middle of the night, we carry the desperate need to know exactly how a relationship will turn out, how a project will end, or how a difficult choice will unfold, months or even years from now. We believe that if we just anticipate every threat with enough intensity, we can build a wall of safety to protect ourselves from the pain of being caught off guard. But Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us to look at what that constant guarding is actually doing to our hearts. The Buddha spoke of a profound truth about human suffering. He taught that in life, there is the first arrow, and then there is the second arrow. The first arrow is the natural pain of being human. It is the simple, undeniable fact that life is unpredictable. For Jiro, the first arrow was simply the weather. It was the reality that storms exist and that nature is beyond our control. That is just life. It is not a failure, it is just the changing of the seasons. For you, the first arrow might be a season of transition. a difficult decision that requires courage, or the quiet ache of uncertainty about what tomorrow holds. The first arrow is what life brings to our doorstep, whether we are prepared or not. But the suffering, the heavy, paralyzing panic that kept Jiro locked in his cycle of fear, the same panic that keeps you awake at night, scanning the horizon for invisible threats, that is the second arrow. The second arrow is what the mind adds to the first. The suffering was not only in the possibility of rain, it was in the way Jiro's mind held that possibility. He shot a second arrow into his own heart by demanding a guarantee that life could never give him, by judging himself for being unprepared, and by desperately resisting the reality of the present moment. He added the burden of the storm to the already challenging task of living in the sun. When Buddhist teachings speak of attachment, they are not just talking about holding on to physical possessions or money. In the landscape of your emotions, attachment is that tight, anxious feeling in your chest that says, "It must happen my way, with a guaranteed outcome, or I cannot be okay." It is the rigidity that refuses to let life unfold because we are terrified of the unknown. And when we hear the word craving, we might think of a dramatic desire, but often craving is much quieter. Craving is the desperate grip that turns our natural care into fear. It is the mind's obsession with a future that does not yet exist, an obsession so strong that it completely blinds us to the beauty and safety of the present moment. We crave the feeling of being safe so intensely that we make ourselves sick with worry while we are standing in the middle of a perfectly clear, warm day. But this story is not telling us to stop feeling. It is not asking us to become cold or indifferent or to abandon our hopes for the future. It is not saying that your desire to be safe or to be prepared or to care for your life is wrong. It is showing us something quieter. It is showing us how to stop adding a second wound to the first. When the hermit asked Jiro if he was incapable of opening his hands, he was teaching him about mindfulness. In our modern lives, we hear that word often, but its true meaning is sometimes lost. Mindfulness is simply the ability to see a thought, like the thought that disaster is imminent, without being dragged down into the storm of what-ifs. Mindfulness is realizing that just because your mind hands you an urgent, terrifying story about what could go wrong, you do not have to believe it, and you certainly do not have to obey it. You can become the quiet space of awareness. Awareness is the vast, open presence that can notice your fear without becoming your fear. It is the part of you that can watch the frantic buzzing energy of your anxious mind and say, "I see you trying to keep me safe, but I do not have to live inside this umbrella tonight." Think of how much energy it takes to maintain the illusion of control. It requires constant scanning, constant rehearsing, and constant judgment. It demands that you stay in the hut of your own mind, holding up a heavy black canvas, while the world itself sits waiting for your presence. No wonder you are so tired, dear friend. Fighting reality by trying to predict it is the most exhausting work in the world. But what happens when you introduce the wisdom of impermanence into that exhaustion? Impermanence is the gentle reminder that nothing stays fixed. The clouds change the moment you look at them. The wind changes the moment you step outside. You are flowing, shifting, and changing in every second, and because you are changing, you have the capacity to handle whatever the sky brings. You do not need to be the same person today that you will be in 5 years to survive the storm. You only need to be the person who is capable of taking one breath at a time. Letting go, then, is not an act of giving up. It does not mean you stop caring or become careless. Letting go means releasing the extra struggle. It means opening the clenched fist that is trying to demand a guarantee from an uncertain world. It means trusting that you have hands and that those hands are capable of opening, even if you are currently holding nothing at all. When you learn to let go of the illusion of the umbrella, you make room for compassion. And compassion is not pity. Compassion is the profound, quiet strength to meet your own suffering without turning it into self-hatred. It is the ability to look at the parts of yourself that feel scared, hyper-vigilant, or on guard, and offer them the same gentle, unhurried presence that the hermit offered Jiro. You are allowed to be in the middle of your journey. You are allowed to be vulnerable. Right now, as you lie here, your breathing slow and the room quiet around you. Can you feel the difference between the heavy umbrella and the open sky? The umbrella feels tight. It lives in the jaw, in the raised shoulders, in the shallow breath. It is always leaning forward, always anticipating an impact that has not happened. But the open sky feels light and grounded. It trusts the light. It knows that life is wide enough to hold you, and it does not need to guard against the future to know it is worthy of the present. You do not need to force yourself to understand all of this at once. You do not need to suddenly become a master of your own mind tonight. Even the desire to heal perfectly, or to choose peace with absolute certainty, is just another umbrella you are trying to hold up. You can lay that down, too. Nothing is required of you right now. The night does not ask you to prove your wisdom, and the dark room does not care if you have scanned for threats or mapped out the next disaster. The night only offers you a place to rest. When we begin to see our thoughts not as absolute truths, but simply as visitors passing through the vast sky of our awareness, the heavy burden of being on guard begins to evaporate. You realize that the storm was only ever a ghost, a shadow cast by the fear of being human, and when you stop believing in ghosts, they lose their power to haunt you. Your path is your path. It cannot be predicted by your own terrified mind, and it cannot be protected by worry. To judge your chapter of uncertainty against some imaginary safe life is to shoot that second arrow directly into your own spirit. Tonight, we are pulling that arrow out. We are gently laying it on the ground. As your body softens into the mattress, as the air moves gently in and out of your lungs, give yourself permission to exist outside of the need to be prepared for disaster. Just for tonight, there is no future to prepare for and no past to analyze. There is only the inhale and the exhale. There is only the soft, cooling presence of the night. In a moment, this teaching will become even more personal. We will begin to look inward, using a gentle practice to help the mind actually experience this release, not just understand it. We will gather the heavy umbrellas of worry that you have been clutching and find a safe, quiet place to set them down. But for now, simply let these words wash over you. Allow yourself to be held by the stillness, knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be and that you are already equipped with everything you need to navigate the dark. You are doing perfectly fine. You are already exactly who you are meant to be. And the peace you are looking for, the peace that feels so far away, is actually closer than your next breath. It is waiting for you, right beneath the noise, right beneath the planning, right beneath the fear of the next disaster. And as we continue, you will find that it becomes easier and easier to leave the umbrella behind and rest in the warmth of the present moment. If it feels right, let us take a moment to bring this quiet understanding down from the busy, exhausted mind and into the heavy, resting body. You have been carrying the weight of that heavy umbrella for so long, and your body has been keeping the score of that constant, anxious scanning. You do not need to force anything to change right now. We are simply going to offer your body the same gentle, unhurried presence that the hermit offered the umbrella maker. Begin by just noticing the space you are in. Feel the soft weight of the blanket covering you, holding you gently against the mattress. Feel the texture of the pillow beneath your head, supporting the weight of your thoughts, so that your neck does not have to. There is nowhere else you need to be in this exact moment. You are not late for sleep. You are not behind on your rest. You are simply here. If it feels comfortable for you, take a slow, quiet breath in through your nose. Do not force the breath to be perfectly deep or unnaturally long. Just notice the cool air entering, filling the space in your chest, and as you let it out, feel your shoulders sink just a fraction of an inch deeper into the bed. Let us do that again, without any expectation. A soft, welcoming breath in, and a slow, gentle sigh out. Notice the muscles around your eyes. These are the muscles that squint into the future, always searching the horizon for what is coming next. Always scanning for the storm you feel might break at any moment. If you can, invite those tiny muscles to soften. Let the skin of your forehead become smooth. Let your eyes rest deeply in their sockets, knowing there is nothing they need to look out for tonight. The future is not a threat that needs to be watched. It is just a vast, open sky waiting for your presence. Now, bring your awareness down to your jaw. Have you been clenching it? Have you been biting down on the pressure of your own need to be prepared for the worst? You do not need to hold your life together with the tension in your jaw. Let your teeth part slightly. Let your tongue rest softly. Feel the relief of allowing your face to simply exist, unguarded and open to the quiet night. As your breath continues its own natural, effortless rhythm, perhaps you can begin to notice the feeling of that heavy umbrella. You might feel it as a tightness in your chest, or a nervous flutter in your stomach, or a general buzzing energy in your limbs. It is that familiar, heavy pattern of the mind, the pattern that whispers, "I must stay alert, or I will not be safe. I must anticipate the other shoe dropping, or I am vulnerable." When you notice this feeling, do not push it away. Do not judge yourself for feeling it. Remember, Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering grows when we add resistance to our pain. If we fight the anxiety, we only build a stronger cage for the mind to pace inside. Instead, see if you can just name the pattern. You might gently say to yourself, inside your own mind, there is the umbrella maker. There is the feeling of needing to shield myself from a storm that isn't here. Just naming it gives you space. It reminds you that this feeling is not who you are. It is simply a visitor that has stopped by, carrying a heavy piece of black canvas. You do not have to invite the visitor to move in, and you do not have to slam the door in its face. You can simply nod to it and let it stand there, watching as it slowly realizes you are no longer going to follow it into the rain. Now, in the quiet theater of your mind, I invite you to leave the hut of your anxieties. Step away from the piles of canvas and the sturdy bamboo ribs. Imagine that you are walking out into that soft, warm grove where the sun is shining brightly. The air here is so fresh, smelling of pine needles and damp, rich earth. The moonlight filters down in pale silver ribbons, illuminating the path just enough for you to see your way. You are entirely safe here. The demands of your future cannot reach you in this deep, quiet place. Imagine walking up to that sturdy, ancient cedar tree. Feel the cool, grounded presence of the forest standing around you. You are holding your heavy umbrella, the one that lists every potential threat, every jagged rock, and every imagined disaster. Take one specific worry that has been troubling you recently, perhaps a fear about your health, a doubt about your security, or simply the heavy ache of waiting for something to go wrong. Hold that worry gently in your mind. Do not try to solve it. Just look at it. Now, imagine taking all the frantic, rushing energy of that worry, all the loud, crashing noise of trying to shield yourself from the future, and distill it down. Watch it shrink and soften until it becomes nothing more than a small, light object. Perhaps it is a smooth river stone or a single dried leaf from the forest floor. Hold it in your open palm, feel its weight. You have been clutching this umbrella, this worry, as if your life depended on the grip itself. But look at your hand. It is tired. It is aching. Imagine standing in the warm golden light of the sun. You don't feel any rain, you don't feel any storm. And for the first time, you realize you don't have to carry the umbrella to prove that you are responsible. Gently, slowly, open your fingers. Let the umbrella, the stone, the worry, slip from your palm. Watch it fall to the soft earth. You are no longer holding it. You are no longer responsible for carrying the storm in your hand while the sun is still shining. Listen to the silence that follows. There is a vast, beautiful space where the worry used to be. In that space, there is no need for canvas or bamboo. There is only the cool night air, the smell of the pines, and the deep, abiding peace of the earth. If another worry rises up, if the mind tries to tell you that you must hurry back to your defense, simply notice it. Distill it down. Let it gather, let it be seen, and then let it go. Watch the image of the umbrella maker dissolve entirely, replaced by the feeling of your shoulders, finally dropping, finally letting go. The fear of being caught off guard is being washed away by the simple, steady act of breathing. You are not an umbrella that needs to be held. You are a living, breathing person, and you were built for this light. If your mind wanders away from the grove, that is perfectly fine. The mind is designed to wander. There is no need to be harsh with yourself. Even noticing that your mind has wandered is a beautiful moment of awareness. When you realize you have returned to the scrolls and the tools, just gently, softly take your own hand and walk yourself back to the cedar tree, back to the open palm, back to the trust. There is no need to force this practice. There is no need to achieve perfect stillness tonight. You do not have to magically heal all your catastrophizing in one evening. The healing we are doing here is much quieter, much slower. We are simply practicing the act of releasing the grip. Feel your body again, resting in your bed. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. With every exhale, imagine that you are releasing just a tiny fraction of your need to predict the future. You are handing the weather over to the night. The night is vast enough to hold it for you. You might place a hand over your own heart if that feels comforting, just to feel the steady, reliable rhythm of your own life. Your heart is not scanning for threats. It is beating at its own perfect pace, asking nothing of you, demanding no flawless preparation, requiring no guarantees. It is simply keeping you alive, moment by moment, in a state of unconditional support. Let the image of the cedar grove gently fade, knowing that you can return to it whenever you are ready. It is always there, waiting inside you, a place of quiet refuge when the world becomes too loud. For now, simply rest in the feeling of being supported. Your bed is holding you. The earth is holding the foundation of your home. You are anchored, you are safe. The terrible urgency to be prepared for disaster has lifted, leaving behind a soft, spacious quiet. In a moment, we will journey into another story, one that takes this understanding even deeper, exploring what happens when we stop trying to guard against the future and start tending the garden of the present. But let yourself linger here for as long as you like. Breathe, soften, you are not failing. You are simply learning how to feel the warmth of the sun again. Years after Gio set his umbrella aside to walk in the sun, the monastery became home to a man named Kenji. Kenji was a nobleman who had been tasked with a strange and heavy duty. He was named the guardian of the empty gate. It was a beautiful ancient gate that led into a vast hidden garden of rare flowers and towering trees. Kenji's duty was singular, but all-consuming. He was ordered to keep the thief of ruin out of the garden. He was told that if the thief slipped past him, the beauty of the garden would be destroyed forever, and it would be entirely his fault. Kenji took this task with a ferocity that bordered on madness. He spent his days and nights pacing the gate, his eyes darting frantically at every shadow, every rustle of leaves, every cloud that passed overhead. He was convinced that the thief was cunning, disguised as a common breeze or a stray animal, and that he had to be sharper, faster, and more vigilant than anyone had ever been before. He never slept. He rarely ate. He felt that the moment he closed his eyes, the moment he allowed himself even a second of peace, that would be the moment the thief would strike. He was so terrified of the potential ruin that he had become a prisoner of the very gate he was supposed to be guarding. His face was gaunt, his movements jerky, and his mind was a constant, buzzing storm of threats. He was waiting for the other shoe to drop, day after day, month after month, and the stress was slowly breaking him. Perhaps you know this feeling, the feeling of guarding a gate that refuses to stay shut, the exhaustion of believing that if you stop worrying for even a second, disaster will find a way in. You pace the perimeter of your own mind, trying to spot the ruin before it happens, never realizing that your own frantic pacing is what is ruining the garden of your life. One afternoon, the silence of the garden was broken by the rhythmic swish, swish of a broom. An elderly nun, who had tended to the flowers for 50 years, was sweeping the path near the gate. She moved with a slow, hypnotic grace, her face lined with the quiet peace of someone who had long ago stopped trying to control the world. She stopped near Kenji. She saw the way his shoulders were hiked up to his ears. She saw the way he gripped his spear, his knuckles white, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She saw a man who was living in a future catastrophe, not in the garden itself. The nun did not ask him what he was doing. She simply leaned on her broom, looked at the wide open gate, and then looked at the sprawling, vibrant garden behind them. "Kenji," the nun said softly, her voice carrying the scent of lavender and damp earth, "tell me, how is the thief?" Kenji didn't even turn his head. He kept his eyes locked on the road, watching for shadows. "He is cunning, he is everywhere. I have not seen him yet, but I know he is coming. I must stay alert. I cannot fail my duty." The nun stepped closer. She gestured toward the open gate, through which the soft golden light of the afternoon sun was pouring, illuminating the roses and the deep, rich green of the ancient trees. "If the gate is kept open to the beauty of the garden," the nun asked, her tone curious, "how can a thief enter?" Kenji scoffed. "You don't understand. The thief does not come through the gate. He slips in through the cracks, he hides in the shadows, he waits for me to look away." The nun nodded slowly. She walked over to the gate, and instead of closing it, she placed her hand gently on the heavy wooden frame. She looked at Kenji, not with pity, but with a deep, piercing clarity that made him feel entirely seen. "You have been guarding this gate for months," she said, "but look at the garden, look at the roses, look at the ancient trees. Are they ruined? Is the ruin here?" Kenji looked. He looked at the garden. It was vibrant, alive and thriving. It was beautiful. "The garden is fine," he muttered, confused. "But it is only fine because I am here. It is only fine because I have not let the thief in." "And if you were to walk into the garden and sit beneath the oak tree," the nun asked, "would the ruins suddenly appear, or would you simply be a man sitting in a garden, watching the flowers grow?" Kenji had no answer. He stood there, his spear heavy in his hand, his heart hammering against his ribs. He realized with a sudden sharp ache of recognition that he had spent his entire time guarding the gate against a ruin that he had never even seen. He had sacrificed the garden for the sake of the gate. He had sacrificed the living present for the sake of an imaginary disaster. He didn't need to become a perfect guard. He didn't need to magically vanish the possibility of ruin forever. But he did need to stop living in the future. He took a long, trembling breath. It was the first full breath he had taken in months. He felt his shoulders drop just an inch. He felt the cold iron of the spear in his hand and realized it was biting into his skin. He didn't drop the spear, that was too big a change, but he did lean it against the wall of the gatehouse. He didn't walk into the garden and sit under the tree, but he did turn his back to the road. He stopped scanning the horizon. He chose just for this moment to look at the garden. He looked at the way a single bee landed on a white lily. He looked at the way the light shifted on the leaves. He did not ask if the ruin was coming. He did not ask if he was doing a good job. He simply watched the bee. For the first time he realized that if the ruin ever did come, it would happen in the future. It was not happening now, and he was capable of handling now. He didn't become a master of peace. He still felt the flickers of anxiety, the pull of the old habit to turn back to the road and watch for threats. But every time he felt that pull, he took a breath. He returned his eyes to the garden. He chose, again and again, to be a man who was living in a garden, rather than a man who was fighting a war against a ghost. As you lie here, resting in the safety of your own bed, feel the weight of your own gait. You have been pacing the perimeter of your life for so long, terrified that if you stop, the ruin will slip in. You have been neglecting the beauty of your own existence because you are so busy defending it from imaginary threats. But you don't need to be the guardian of an empty future. You only need to be the dweller of the garden. You are allowed to make a mistake. You are allowed to be vulnerable. You are allowed to stop guarding against the other shoe and start noticing the warmth of the floor beneath your feet. You are allowed to weave your life, even if you are worried about the pattern, and you are allowed to simply exist, even if the future is uncertain. The transformation does not come from suddenly becoming flawless or fearless. It comes from the subtle shift of realizing that you are not the guardian of a disaster. You are the inhabitant of a life. You are the awareness that chooses to continue, even when the shadow is long and the road ahead is hidden in the mist. You don't need to solve the whole catastrophe tonight. You don't need to know how the garden will look next year or whether the gate will hold. You only need to know that you are here, that you are breathing, and that the garden of your own heart is already blooming. Feel your breath moving through you, just like the wind moving through the trees in the garden. In, out, in, out. It is a steady, rhythmic, ancient motion. You've been doing this your entire life without needing to guard the air. Your body knows how to live itself into the next moment. Your heart knows how to beat without an invitation. If your mind tells you that you are being irresponsible for resting, or that you are vulnerable because you aren't worrying, look at that thought with the same compassion the nun showed Kenji. Acknowledge that you are afraid. Acknowledge that you have been holding on too tight, and then gently let the spear lean against the wall. Let your hands rest. There is no need to be perfect to be worthy of this rest. There is no need to have a flawless history to deserve this quiet. You are guarding a garden that is already alive, and the best way to protect it is to actually live in it. As you sink deeper into the stillness, trust that the garden of your life is already taking care of itself. You don't have to keep a perfect record of the threats. You don't have to keep comparing your safety to the imaginary disasters of others. You are simply here, in the sun-drenched courtyard of the present moment, listening to the quiet and choosing to take the next breath. That is enough. That is more than enough. You are safe enough to let the gate be open for a while. You are safe enough to stop calculating the threats and simply feel the texture of the moment you are currently in. The shadow is not an error. The uncertainty is not a mistake. Everything is blooming together, perfectly in the quiet dark. And as the night holds you, remember that the garden is not something you are guarding, it is something you are growing. And it is already whole. When Kenji finally leaned his spear against the wall and turned his back on the road to watch the bee on the lily, he did not instantly know if the thief was truly gone. He did not suddenly possess a guarantee that the garden would remain safe forever. All he did was stop adding his own violence to the garden. All he did was stop guarding a ruin that hadn't happened. As you lie here, your body sinking deeper into the soft support of your bed, consider how much of your own exhaustion comes not from the threats of life, but from the guarding. Why do we hold onto the umbrella so tightly? Why do we insist on guarding the empty gate, even when our shoulders ache and our hearts are entirely drained? In the quiet of this room, with the night air gently rising and falling in your chest, we can look at the mind with profound compassion. The mind does not create this frantic vigilance because it wants to harm you. It does it because it is terrified of uncertainty. From a very young age, we are taught that control is the same thing as safety. We are handed a rigid map for how life should unfold, when we should find love, when our careers should blossom, when we should finally feel settled and secure, and when life, in its wild and unpredictable wisdom, does not follow that exact script. The mind begins to panic. It believes that if it just worries enough, if it just rehearses the future over and over again, it can somehow build a wall of certainty to protect itself from the unknown. Think about how many nights you have laid awake just like this, treating your worries as if they were protective shields. We rehearse tomorrow's conversations, imagining every possible failure, hoping that if we pre-feel the disappointment, it will not hurt as much when it arrives. We replay the past, analyzing every mistake, dragging old versions of ourselves into the present moment for another round of interrogation. We believe that if we just figure it all out, if we just solve the puzzle of our own perceived inadequacy, we will finally be allowed to rest. But this need for control is an illusion. It is the nobleman pacing the gate, terrified of a thief who has no interest in entering, while the garden itself withers from neglect. When we feel that we are vulnerable, we often try to fix ourselves through shame. Have you noticed this heavy pattern? We look at the milestones of others, their successes, their seeming happiness, their perfectly timed lives, and we turn that observation into a weapon against our own hearts. We tell ourselves that we are not enough, that we are missing the mark, that we have wasted our potential. We desperately need the approval of the world to validate our existence. And when we feel we have missed the map, we punish ourselves. We somehow believe that self-judgment is the fuel required for growth. We think that if we hate our current situation enough, we can shame ourselves into safety. But shame has never healed anyone. Shame is simply the frantic pacing at the gate. It creates noise. It creates cold sweat. It keeps the mind spinning in circles, but it does not protect the garden. It only exhausts the soul. Over time, if we are not careful, we can even turn this pain into an identity. We become so used to the feeling of being on guard that it becomes our defining story. We start to introduce ourselves to the quiet spaces of our own minds as the one who is worried, the one who is fragile, the one who is waiting for the fall. We build a heavy armor out of our own anxiety, believing that if we expect nothing but disaster, we can never be surprised by it. But Buddhist wisdom offers a radically different way to meet this pain. It invites us to look very closely at what is actually happening in the present moment, and to separate the reality of life from the terrifying stories the mind is telling us. This is the teaching of the first and second pain. The first pain is simply what life brings. It is the weather on the mountain. It is the undeniable ache of not having what you deeply desire yet. It is the confusion of an uncertain path. It is the sadness of a door closing, or the quiet loneliness of waiting for a new chapter to begin. The Buddha never taught that we could magically erase the first pain. Life will always contain moments of unpredictability and deep, mysterious waters. To be human is to encounter the unknown. We cannot control the weather of our lives. But the second pain, the heavy, suffocating panic that steals your sleep, that is what the mind adds to the first. The second pain is the story that says, because there is uncertainty, I am doomed. The second pain is the frantic voice that screams, I am unprotected, and therefore I am worthless. The second pain is the tight gripping of the umbrella, the desperate, angry pacing at the gate, the shame, the comparison, and the resistance to reality. We cannot always control the first pain, but, dear friend, we have a profound, beautiful choice about whether or not to feed the second. You do not have to fight the clouds. You only have to put down the umbrella. When you realize this, the very definition of peace begins to change. We spend so much of our lives believing that peace is the absence of difficulty. We tell ourselves, I will finally be peaceful when the future is mapped out. I will be peaceful when the storm is averted. When I am safely inside the gates of the city, and when everyone approves of my journey. But if your peace is entirely dependent on perfect conditions, it will always be fragile. It will always be a hostage to tomorrow. True peace, The deep, abiding stillness that the nun possessed is not the absence of difficulty. Peace is a fundamentally different relationship with difficulty. It is the quiet courage to sit in the garden, surrounded by the unknown, and say to yourself, "I do not know exactly what tomorrow holds, but I am going to stop guarding against it. I am going to trust that if a storm comes, I will have the hands to handle it then." As you breathe right now, feel the physical difference between resistance and release. Resistance is tight. It lives in the clenched jaw, the raised shoulders, the shallow, rapid breath in the top of the chest. Resistance is the body bracing for an impact that is only happening in the mind. But release is heavy. Release is the soft sinking of your hips into the mattress. Release is the relaxing of the belly. Release is the slow, full breath that fills the lungs and leaves without being pushed. You can care deeply about your life without guarding it so tightly. You can hold beautiful intentions for your future without turning those intentions into a rigid, punishing defense. You can want to protect what you love while still finding a way to rest in the garden. The umbrella you have been worshipping a phantom. It was created by a busy, anxious world that profits from your fear, but the earth does not know about this fear. The ancient oaks do not rush their growth to keep up with the imaginary storms. The garden does not panic if a cloud passes over it instead of shining in the sun. The natural world operates on a completely different rhythm, a rhythm of profound, innate trust. You belong to that natural world. Your life has its own seasons, its own weather, its own growth. When you stop treating every anxious thought as a command, you create a space inside yourself. In that space, you realize that not every feeling of panic requires an immediate action. Sometimes, the mind just produces fear the way the sky produces shadows. You do not have to grab a light and try to wrestle the shadows off the ground. You can just lie on the earth, breathe, and watch them pass. If your mind is telling you right now that you have wasted time, or that you are too late to stop the next disaster, gently recognize that this is just the second pain. It is just a story. It is the echo of a society that moves too fast, bouncing around inside your tired head. You do not need to argue with the story. You do not need to aggressively fight the thought, just whisper to it. "I see you, but I do not have to follow you." What if you stopped trying to fix yourself tonight? What if you decided that, just for these few hours, the project of your life is on hold? You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a broken machine requiring maintenance. You are a living, breathing being, sitting in a garden, watching the flowers grow. In a moment, we will explore how to carry this gentle awareness out of the quiet night and into the bright, noisy reality of your everyday life. We will see what it looks like to put down the umbrella while you are awake, while you are interacting with others, and while you are moving through the modern world. But for now, simply let your body practice this surrender. Feel the bed rising up to hold you. You do not have to hold yourself up. Feel the dark, quiet room wrapping around you like a soft, heavy blanket. You are safe from the rushing world. Take a slow breath in, gathering any lingering need to guard tomorrow, and as you breathe out, let it spill away into the dark, silent air. The night can hold it. The night is vast. You are perfectly on time. You have always been perfectly on time. Rest in that deep, quiet current and let yourself be held. Tomorrow, the quiet of this dark room will eventually be replaced by the bright, demanding light of morning. The world will wake up, and with it, the noise will return. The world is built on gates. It runs on schedules, expectations, and the constant, buzzing demand for vigilance. You will step out of this bed and back into a society that celebrates the frantic guarding of the nobleman, a society that points to the crashing waterfall of over-analyzing and calls it progress. How do we carry the quiet wisdom of the garden into such a loud and rushing world? How do we put down the heavy spear when everyone around us is obsessively patrolling the road for invisible thieves? We do it by realizing that peace is not a grand final destination we arrive at once and for all. Peace is practiced in small moments. It is a quiet, continuous choice to stop adding the second pain to the first. Think of the moment you wake up and reach for your phone. In the soft light of morning, before you have even taken a deep breath, you open a screen and are flooded with the curated gardens of other people's lives. You see their flowers, their vibrant blooms, their seemingly perfect paths, and instantly, the modern alarm clock begins to ring. The heavy, familiar ache settles in your chest. The feeling that you are behind in life, that your garden is neglected, that you are missing the beauty that everyone else was handed. In that exact moment, you have a choice. The first pain is the natural vulnerability of being human, the simple fact that you are still cultivating your path. But the second pain is the thought that says, I am a failure because my garden does not look like theirs yet. You do not have to believe that thought. Not every thought deserves obedience. You can notice the panic rising, and you can gently set the phone face down, that is putting down the spear. You can take one slow breath and remind yourself that their garden is not your garden, and their bloom has absolutely nothing to do with the quiet, beautiful unfolding of your own life. Perhaps your struggle is not with a career or a milestone, but with a heart. Maybe you know the quiet, suffocating anxiety of waiting for a text, checking your phone for reassurance every few minutes. You feel the space between you and another person, and the uncertainty of that space terrifies you. The mind tries to build a bridge of control. We overanalyze the subtext of a message. We try to manage the other person's feelings. We cling desperately to the connection, hoping that if we just hold on tight enough, we will not be abandoned. But you can care deeply without gripping tightly. When you find yourself obsessing over a relationship, terrified of the uncertainty, remember the nun and the empty gate. You cannot force someone else's growth, and you cannot force connection through frantic guarding. When the fear of being ruined rises up in your throat, you can choose to sit back. You can leave the spear leaning against the wall. Let the other person have their own weather. Let the relationship breathe. True connection does not require you to aggressively patrol the perimeter of every interaction. It is found when both people trust the garden enough to just exist side by side. And what about the days when you are carrying a heavy sadness, yet you feel you must hide it? So many of us know the exhaustion of pretending to be okay, of smiling while feeling incredibly heavy inside. We walk through the grocery store, the office, the family gathering, wearing a mask of perfect vigilance, terrified that if anyone saw our uncertainty, they would judge us. We are so afraid of looking like we are lost that we spend all our energy defending an illusion. The next time someone asks how you are or demands something of your time when your cup is entirely empty, remember that a breath before answering is a form of wisdom. You do not have to rush to fix their discomfort. You do not have to instantly produce a happy response to prove you are functioning well. You can take a breath. You can allow there to be a pause. You can be honest about your fatigue, or you can simply protect your energy with a gentle, unhurried boundary. You are allowed to be a person who is still figuring things out. You are allowed to be in the middle of the garden, even if the flowers haven't fully opened yet. There will also be days when you look at your life and feel a crushing wave of guilt simply because you are tired. We have been conditioned to believe that rest is a reward we must achieve. We think we must empty our to-do lists, solve all our problems, and secure our entire future before we are allowed to sit on the couch and do nothing. When we do try to rest, the mind punishes us with visions of all the things we should be guarding. Wanting rest, but feeling guilty for resting, is one of the heaviest burdens of the modern heart. But listen closely to this truth. You can rest without earning it. The ancient garden does not earn the right to stand still. The deep oak tree does not earn the right to grow slowly in the shade. Rest is not a prize for the hyper-productive, it is a fundamental requirement for a living, breathing soul. When the guilt of resting creeps into your mind, recognize it as just another phantom thief. It is just another ghost. Tell the guilt, I hear you, but I am putting down the spear today. Allow your body to be heavy. Allow your afternoon to be unproductive. The garden will not be ruined because you chose to be still. And then there are the nights, perhaps, very much like tonight, when the lights go out and the mind immediately begins replaying a mistake. You stare at the ceiling, and your brain plays a film of a choice you wish you could undo, or a path you fear you should have taken but didn't. The mind drags the past into the present and beats you with it, trying to fix the self through shame. When this happens, remind yourself that not every feeling is a command. Just because your body feels a sudden flush of shame or a spike of anxiety does not mean there is an actual emergency happening in your bedroom. It is just an old echo. It is the sound of the wind rattling a gate that was never actually locked. You do not have to obey the anxiety. You do not have to get out of bed and mentally pace the perimeter of a garden that is already safe. You can simply notice the feeling, like a drop of water gathering on a rose petal. Watch the memory swell. Do not push it away, and do not judge yourself for remembering it. Just watch it, and then let it fall. Plink, let it drop into the soil and nourish the roots. Applying this ancient wisdom to your modern life does not mean your life will suddenly become perfect. The shadows will still lengthen. There will still be moments of profound uncertainty. There will be days when you forget everything we have talked about tonight. Days when you pick up the heavy spear and pace the gate until your feet bleed. And when that happens, the most important practice of all is forgiveness. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that waking up is not something we do once, it is something we do 1,000 times a day. Every time you realize you are clutching the spear, you have woken up. Every time you catch yourself punishing your own heart for being vulnerable, you have woken up. You do not need to be angry with yourself for forgetting. You simply open your hands, let the spear lean against the wall, and let your own heart return to the garden again. You can let go without disappearing. You can surrender your desperate need for a guaranteed outcome without losing your connection to the beauty of your life. In fact, it is only when we stop fighting the future that we can finally feel the deep, steady peace that has been waiting for us all along. As you lie here now, let this practice begin tonight. Let it begin in this very breath. If your mind tells you that you are not doing a good enough job at relaxing, notice the irony of that thought. Notice how the mind tries to turn events into a competition, a milestone you are failing to reach. Smile gently at that busy, exhausted part of your mind. It is only trying to protect you. It just doesn't know how to trust the garden. You can be the gentle parent to your own anxious thoughts. You can say to them, "It is okay. We do not have to guard the gate tonight. We are safe." Feel the space around you. The room is quiet. The demands of the day have completely faded into the distance. The emails, the texts, the expectations of others, the imaginary finish lines, they are all outside this room, and the door is closed. You are entirely safe to just be the breathing body on this bed. In a few moments, we will begin our final descent into sleep. We will let all the words, all the stories, and all the teachings dissolve into the dark, quiet space of rest. You will not need to hold on to any of this. The wisdom has already settled into your bones. The gate has already been left wide open. Just allow yourself to float, trusting that the heavy, peaceful air knows exactly how to hold you. The night has deepened around you. The world outside your window has finally surrendered its busy rushing, folding itself into the quiet dark. The streets have quieted, the houses are still, and the endless, loud demands of the day have lost their shape. In this room, bathed in the faint, silvery light of the moon, there is only the soft, steady rhythm of your breathing. The words we have shared tonight are beginning to fade. They have done their work. You do not need to memorize them, and you do not need to hold onto them. The wisdom of the garden is already settling into your bones, sinking into the quiet spaces of your heart where it will remain, waiting for you whenever you need it. You can stop trying to figure it all out now. The spear has no power here. In the deep silent hours of the night, there is no behind and there is no ahead. There is only this exact moment, holding you completely safe. Feel the impossible heaviness of your own body, sinking beautifully into the mattress. Imagine that your bones are like smooth, ancient stones that have finally been allowed to settle at the bottom of a deep, quiet pool. They are not fighting the current. They are not trying to float. They are simply resting on the soft, sandy bottom, cradled by the earth. Let that heavy, comfortable sensation begin in your feet. Notice how they simply fall away, the tension draining out of them, leaving them completely relaxed. Feel that heavy warmth moving slowly up through your legs, releasing the knees, softening the thighs, allowing your hips to sink entirely into the support beneath you. You are anchored. You are grounded. You do not have to hold yourself up anymore. Feel the softening travel up through your spine, relaxing every muscle in your back. The armor you wore today is falling away, piece by piece. Unneeded in the safety of this dark room, let your shoulders drop away from your ears. They have been carrying the imaginary weight of the future for so long, but tonight you have set that spear down. It is resting against the wall, far away from you now. Feel your arms become heavy, your hands resting open, the fingers curling naturally, grasping nothing. Let your jaw part just a fraction. Let your tongue soften. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes smooth out, releasing the need to look ahead, releasing the need to plan, releasing the need to guard against a disaster that has not arrived. Your body knows exactly how to rest when the mind stops forcing it to run. Breathe in the cool night air. Let it fill you with a spacious, gentle quiet. And as you breathe out, imagine that you are that small, wooden boat, gliding effortlessly on the deep, dark water. The frantic pacing at the gate is over. The heavy spear has been set aside. The oars are resting inside the boat. There is only the sound of the water, moving slowly, eternally, carrying you with perfect grace. Imagine looking up from the boat into the vast open night sky. The shadows have completely cleared. Above you is a canopy of 10,000 stars, brilliant and still, reflecting their silver light on the surface of the river. The stars do not rush. The moon does not hurry its path across the dark canvas of the sky. They simply exist, beautifully and perfectly, exactly where they are meant to be. And so are you. You are a part of this vast, unhurried nature. Your life is not a mistake. Your uncertainty is not a ruin. You have always been unfolding exactly as you were meant to, learning the lessons that your unique soul needed to learn, walking the path that was carved specifically for your feet. If a stray thought wanders into your mind, a lingering worry, a quiet fear, a ghost of the gatekeeper, trying to remind you of what is left unprotected, do not fight it. Do not let it startle you. Just look at it with the gentle, loving eyes of the nun. Watch that worry distill into a single drop of water. Watch it gather on the soft green moss in the moonlight. Watch it swell and let it fall, plink. Watch it land in the smooth granite bowl. Watch it wash over the edge and join the garden, disappearing into the soil, carried away without you having to do a single thing. Listen to the silence that follows the drop. That silence is your true home. You have been guarding for so long, dear friend. You have been searching for a place where you could finally feel safe, a place where the ticking clock would stop, a place where you could finally rest. But that place was never a destination in the future. It was never a milestone you had to cross. It was never an achievement you had to earn. It was right here. It was always right here, waiting for you beneath the noise. You are already home. You do not need to earn this sleep. You do not need to prove your worth to the night. The dark room embraces you unconditionally, exactly as you are, with all your beautiful imperfections, all your unfinished chapters, all your quiet questions. Let the breath breathe itself. Inhale the peace of the deep garden. Exhale the need to guard. Inhale the quiet of the night. Exhale the illusion of needing to be perfect. You are perfectly safe. You are perfectly whole. You are perfectly on time. Drift now. Drift on the gentle current of your own breathing. Let the water carry you away from the waking world, away from the thinking mind, down into the soft velvet darkness of deep, restorative sleep. The river knows the way. The deep water has caught the hull. You are being held by something so much vaster than your worries. There is nothing left to do. There is nowhere left to be. There is only the beautiful, quiet surrender to the night. Let go entirely. And as you drift into the quiet, starlit dark, ask yourself one final gentle thing. What if the life you were trying to guard has been waiting, all along, for you to simply live in it?